The rain had just stopped, leaving a silvery sheen on 8th Avenue. Cars hissed across wet asphalt, their headlights slicing through the lingering mist. Among the sounds of honking horns and distant chatter, a single noise stood out. A boy's sobs, raw and trembling. Alara Quinn was crouched on the sidewalk, her knees pressing into the cold, damp concrete. Her dress, once cream-colored, was now a patchwork of dirt, coffee stains, and fraying threads. She hadn't had a clean change of clothes in weeks. Her face, streaked with faint smudges of grime, was framed by hair that had long since given up resisting the wind. Before her stood a boy of about 7, tears clinging to his lashes. His small hands gripped the straps of a blue hoodie, his breaths coming in shaky bursts. "It's okay," Alara whispered, her voice calm despite the ache in her own stomach from going without breakfast. "You're safe. Tell me your name." The boy sniffled, hesitated. "Ronan." She gave a small nod. "All right, Ronan. Where's your mom or dad?" Ronan's lips quivered. I don't know. I was looking at the toy store and then..." His voice cracked. "They weren't there." Alara's chest tightened. She remembered what it was like to feel that kind of fear, the way the world suddenly became too big, too loud. She gently rested a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find them, I promise." She didn't notice the deep purr of an engine nearby, or the sleek red sports car that had pulled over half a block away. Inside, a man sat motionless, his eyes locked on the scene in front of him. The low growl of an engine made Alara glance over her shoulder. Parked half a block away was a black luxury sedan, its polished body catching the dim streetlight, rain droplets sliding off like tiny beads of glass. The driver's door opened slowly, deliberately. Out stepped a man whose presence seemed to shift the air around him. His suit was charcoal, perfectly tailored to his tall, lean frame, the kind of cut only money or an exceptional eye could buy. He didn't hurry, yet every step ate up the distance between them. His gaze was locked on the boy at Alara's side, sharp and unwavering, as though the rest of the street had ceased to exist. When he was close enough, his voice cut through the hum of the city. "Ronan." The boy's head snapped up, his tear-streaked face lighting with relief. "Dad." Alara felt the boy's small hand slip from hers as he ran forward. The man crouched down, scooping him into his arms with an intensity that made Alara look away for a second, as if intruding on something sacred. "I told you not to wander off." The man's tone was stern, but beneath it was something softer, fear, maybe. Alara shifted her weight, feeling the cold dampness of her dress against her knees where she'd knelt earlier. Her coat clung to her, still heavy with rain. The man stood, his gaze turning to her. Up close, his eyes were an arresting pale gray, cutting straight through her, measuring her in an instant. "Were you with him this whole time?" "Yes," she said, voice steady. "He was alone and crying. I stayed until someone came." His jaw tightened. "You touched him." The question stung, though his voice carried no malice, just guarded suspicion. "To comfort him," she said simply. He was terrified. For a moment, they just looked at each other, two strangers worlds apart, standing in the mist of the post-rain air. Ronan tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, she was nice. She helped me." The man, Kalen Dre, let his gaze wander over Alara's appearance. The mud-streaked hem of her dress, the faint dirt smudges along her cheekbones, her hair curling unevenly where it had dried in the rain. She didn't carry herself like someone chasing a reward, yet he'd learned long ago that looks could lie. "Where are you staying?" he asked at last. Her lips parted, then pressed together again. She didn't want to answer, but lies felt heavier than truth. "Nowhere, at the moment." His eyes narrowed slightly, as though weighing whether she was telling the full story. Then, without warning, he set Ronan gently on the ground. "Get in the car," he told his son. Ronan hesitated, glancing at Alara before climbing into the black sedan. Kalen turned back to her, rain-dark hair falling slightly into his eyes. "You're coming with me." Alara hesitated on the curb, glancing at the black sedan's tinted windows. "Where are we going?" Kalen's reply was clipped. "Somewhere public. You'll be more comfortable talking there." The city air still smelled faintly of rain, mixed with the scent of street food from a vendor packing up for the night. Alara climbed into the back seat, sliding to the far side. The leather was warm, the quiet hum of the engine oddly soothing after the chaos of the street. Ronan sat beside her, stealing quick glances, as if trying to decide whether she was a stranger or a friend. They drove in silence for several minutes. Neon signs passed in blurs of blue and red across the windows, the city's heartbeat pulsing outside. The car pulled up beside a small corner cafe, the kind with fogged-up windows and the smell of roasted coffee drifting out the door. A bell chimed as Kalen held it open, his posture polite but not warm. Inside, the cafe was nearly empty. A couple huddled at a booth near the back, and a lone man typed on a laptop by the window. Kalen guided Ronan to a table, then gestured for Alara to sit opposite him. The waitress approached, her eyes flicking between Alara's worn clothes and Kalen's immaculate suit. "Coffee?" Kalen nodded. "Two black, and a hot chocolate." When the waitress left, Kalen leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "Tell me exactly what happened before I arrived." Alara met his gaze without flinching. "I was walking past the toy store when I saw him. He was crying, calling for someone. People kept walking by. I asked where his parents were, but he didn't know. I stayed until—" She tilted her head toward him. "You showed up." His jaw shifted slightly, but his eyes stayed steady on hers. "Why were you in that part of town?" She hesitated, fingers tightening around the chipped ceramic sugar jar in front of her. "Because I don't have anywhere else to be." Ronan piped up, breaking the tension. "She told me stories while we waited, about a dog named Bristle who got lost but found his way home." Kalen's eyes flicked to his son, then back to her. There was something unsettling about her calmness, even in the face of his direct questions. The waitress returned, setting down steaming mugs. The hot chocolate had a swirl of whipped cream on top, and Ronan grinned at the sight. Kalen took a slow sip of his coffee, his gaze never leaving her over the rim of the cup. "And if I hadn't shown up, what would you have done with him?" Alara's answer was quiet but certain. "Found the police, or waited all night if I had to." For the first time, something in Kalen's expression softened, barely, but enough for her to notice. Outside, the rain began again, tapping against the cafe window like soft fingers. Inside, the air between them thickened, not with hostility, but with the weight of two people realizing they were both keeping something back. The cafe's windows glowed softly against the night, rainwater running down the glass in thin, silver streams. The low hum of the espresso machine filled the pauses in conversation. Kalen leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion now, but in study. "You speak like someone who's had to keep promises before," he said. Alara traced a finger along the rim of her coffee mug. "Maybe." Ronan, halfway through his hot chocolate, looked between them. "She knew how to calm me down," he said quietly, almost as if it was an important piece of evidence. Alara smiled faintly at him, but her gaze didn't linger. Instead, she focused on the street outside, where a bus hissed to a stop under a flickering street lamp. "I used to be a teacher," she murmured, the words escaping before she could stop them. Kaylin's head tilted slightly. Used to be. Her fingers tightened around the mug. She didn't want to tell the whole story. Not here, not like this. But Kaylin's voice carried the kind of quiet pressure that made silence feel like a lie. There was an incident, she said finally. A boy in my class. He reminded me of someone I once knew. He was being hurt at home. I tried to help. She stopped, the memory pressing against her ribs like a stone. The school didn't like the way I went about it. I lost my job. My apartment followed soon after. Kaylin's expression shifted, subtly, but enough that the steel in his gaze eased. So you've been on the streets ever since? Alara nodded once, eyes fixed on the swirl of coffee in her cup. And you? She glanced up suddenly, meeting his gaze. You've been watching me since before tonight, haven't you? His brows lifted, just slightly. What makes you say that? You didn't ask my name. You didn't ask who I was. You asked where I was staying. That's not a stranger's first question. Ronan's eyes darted between them, sensing the shift in tone but not understanding it. Kaylin didn't answer right away. He took another slow sip of his coffee, as though buying time. Then, quietly, he said, "Sometimes you can learn more about a person by seeing how they act when they think no one's looking." Alara frowned. "So you were testing me?" Kaylin didn't confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. Outside, the rain turned heavier, a steady drumming that blurred the city lights into soft halos. Inside, Kaylin's pale gray eyes held hers, and for the first time she wondered if she had stumbled into something much larger than a lost child and a chance meeting. The cafe's door swung open, letting in a cold gust of wind and the damp scent of rain. Kaylin glanced at Ronan. "Buddy, why don't you go ask for another marshmallow at the counter?" Ronan's eyes lit up, and he trotted away, leaving them alone. The moment he was gone, Kaylin's expression shifted, his guarded gaze softening, just slightly. "You've been wondering why I was watching you," he said quietly. Alara tilted her head, her voice low. "Yes, and I have a feeling the answer isn't simple." Kaylin exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. 2 years ago, Ronan lost his mother. It was raining hard. She died protecting him. I wasn't there when it happened. His voice held the weight of a memory too heavy to put down, the kind that left a mark deep and permanent. Alara didn't speak. She just listened, her eyes locked on his. "Since that night," Kaylin continued, "I haven't seen Ronan relax around anyone, not completely until tonight. Until you managed to calm him down like you understood exactly what kind of fear he carries." A faint, bittersweet smile tugged at Alara's lips. "Maybe because I've lost someone too." Outside, the rain fell harder, streaking the cafe windows in silver threads. Kaylin reached into his wallet. Not for money, but for a small, worn photograph. He slid it across the table. In it, Ronan was grinning, his tiny arms wrapped around a laughing woman. "I want to offer you something," Kaylin said. "A job. Be Ronan's caretaker, his tutor, whatever you want to call it. But in truth, I'm asking you to help lift the weight off his heart." Alara looked at the picture, then over at Ronan, who was at the counter carefully drizzling chocolate syrup into his cup. His innocence, fragile yet glowing, was a reminder of what was worth protecting. Kaylin's voice was softer now, stripped of any test or suspicion. "Will you?" Alara turned toward the rain-smeared window, then back to him. "Yes, but on one condition. This isn't just a job. I'll be a safe home for him." For the first time that night, Kaylin smiled, genuinely without restraint. "Deal." They stepped out of the cafe into the night, the rain still falling in silver sheets under the glow of the street lamps. Ronan skipped ahead, the hood of his jacket bouncing with each step, splashing deliberately into the shallow puddles that shimmered on the sidewalk. Kalen held the door open for Alara, the black car waiting at the curb, its sleek body reflecting the fractured light of the wet streets. He didn't rush her. Instead, he let her stand there for a moment, breathing in the crisp air, the soft percussion of raindrops against the pavement. Ronan turned back. "Alara, are you coming?" She smiled, really smiled this time, and walked toward him. "I am." Kalen opened the rear door, but instead of sliding in right away, Alara crouched beside Ronan, adjusting his hood so the rain wouldn't drip into his eyes. "You ready for an adventure?" she asked. Ronan grinned. "Yeah, with you and Dad." Something unspoken passed between Kalen and Alara in that instant. A silent acknowledgement that this wasn't just convenience or charity or obligation. It was the start of something that could mend wounds slowly, but for real. As the car pulled away, city lights stretched across the wet asphalt, blurring into streaks of gold and red. Inside, the warmth of the heater wrapped around them, contrasting with the cool smell of rain still clinging to their clothes. Ronan leaned sleepily against Alara's arm. Kalen glanced at her in the rearview mirror, and for the first time, he didn't see a stranger. The rain outside no longer felt heavy. It felt like it was washing something away.